Have you ever wondered what the final moments of history's most notorious Nazis were like? These moments provide a glimpse into the minds of the men who orchestrated some of the most horrific crimes in history. In today's video, we're taking a look into the last words of the high-ranking Nazis before their execution after the Nuremberg Trials, the infamous trial where 24 key figures of the Nazi regime were held accountable for their war crimes. Eventually, 10 prominent Nazi leaders were executed by hanging. At 1:11 a.m. on the 16th of October 1946, Joachim von Ribbentrop was first in line to the gallows. Von Ribbentrop served as Adolf Hitler's foreign minister from 1938 until 1945. Von Ribbentrop played a key role in shaping the foreign policy of the Third Reich. As foreign minister, von Ribbentrop was a fervent advocate for Nazi expansionism and played an essential role in orchestrating the diplomatic groundwork for Germany's aggressive war strategy. Von Ribbentrop showed little remorse for his actions during the trial and maintained that Hitler made all the crucial decisions on his own and that he had been misled by Hitler's consistent assertions of wanting only peace. However, the tribunal dismissed this claim, asserting that von Ribbentrop's close involvement in the conduct of the war meant he could not have remained unaware of the aggressive nature of Hitler's actions. Even while in prison, von Ribbentrop's loyalty to Hitler persisted. "Even with all I know, if in this cell Hitler should come to me and say, 'Do this,' I would still do it." However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. His involvement in the formulation of aggressive policies, as well as his direct participation in the Holocaust by facilitating the deportation of Jews to extermination camps, sealed his fate. Moments before his death, Ribbentrop was reported to have uttered his final words. "God protect Germany. God have mercy on my soul. My final wish is that Germany should recover her unity and that, for the sake of peace, there should be understanding between East and West. I wish peace to the world." After von Ribbentrop, Wilhelm Keitel entered the gymnasium. As chief of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht (OKW), Keitel was a key figure in planning and executing numerous military operations, and was instrumental in the invasions of Poland, France, and the Soviet Union. Despite his high rank, Keitel was often criticized for his submissive nature. He rarely opposed Hitler's decisions, even when they conflicted with sound military strategy, and signed numerous orders that led to war crimes, including the infamous Commissar Order and the Night and Fog Decree. After Germany's defeat, Keitel was arrested by Allied forces. He was subsequently indicted on charges of crimes against humanity, crimes against peace, and war crimes. During the trial, Keitel attempted to defend his actions by claiming he was only following orders, but this defense did little to mitigate his responsibilities. Keitel's final moments were marked by a statement that reflected both his sense of duty and regret. "I call on God Almighty to have mercy on the German people. More than 2 million German soldiers went to their deaths for the fatherland before me. I now follow my sons, all for Germany." Next in line was Ernst Kaltenbrunner. Kaltenbrunner was the chief of the Reich Main Security Office, which included the infamous Gestapo and the Security Service SD. This position granted Kaltenbrunner immense power, making him a central figure in the execution of Nazi policies, particularly those concerning security, intelligence, and the enforcement of the regime's racial laws. Kaltenbrunner was instrumental in overseeing the operations of the Gestapo, Kripo, and SD, organizations crucial to the suppression of resistance and the implementation of the Holocaust. His tenure as chief of the RSHA saw an intensification of the regime's brutal tactics, including mass deportations to extermination camps where millions of Jews and other persecuted groups were systematically murdered. During the trial, Kaltenbrunner defended himself by claiming that his role as the RSHA chief was merely theoretical, and argued that he was only involved in espionage and intelligence matters, and that Himmler, his superior, was responsible for the crimes committed during his time as chief of the RSHA. Kaltenbrunner even asserted that he played a role in ending the final solution. As Kaltenbrunner mounted the scaffold, he was asked if he had any last words, and said in a mild voice, "I have loved my German people and my fatherland with a warm heart. I have done my duty by the laws of my people. I'm sorry this time my people were led by men who were not soldiers, and that crimes were committed of which I had no knowledge. Germany, good luck." Next up was Alfred Rosenberg. Rosenberg was a key Nazi ideologue and theorist. Rosenberg authored The Myth of the 20th Century, a seminal work of Nazi ideology that promoted racial theory, anti-Semitism, and the concept of Lebensraum. Rosenberg played a significant role in developing Nazi racial policies, the persecution of Jews, and the looting of cultural treasures from occupied territories. He was found guilty on all 4 counts: conspiracy to commit crimes against peace, planning, initiating, and waging wars of aggression, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The tribunal identified him as one of the principal architects behind the invasions of Norway and the Soviet Union. When asked if he had any final words to share, he simply shook his head and uttered a single, resolute no. Hans Frank was closely behind Alfred Rosenberg. Unlike the others, he entered the room with a faint smile on his face. Despite his visible nervousness, marked by frequent swallowing, he seemed to find solace in the opportunity to atone for his horrible crimes. As a lawyer, Frank provided legal defense for Adolf Hitler and other prominent Nazi leaders. In 1939, Frank was appointed the Governor General of the occupied Polish territories. In this capacity, Frank oversaw the administrative machinery of terror and repression in Poland and was directly responsible for the exploitation, forced labor, and systematic murder of millions of Polish civilians and Jews. Frank voluntarily surrendered 43 volumes of his personal diaries to the Allies, which subsequently served as incriminating evidence during his prosecution. Despite his initial arrogance, Frank displayed remorse during the trials, admitting some of the crimes committed under his regime, stating that 1,000 years would not suffice to erase the guilt of the Nazi regime. Frank, who had converted to Roman Catholicism after his arrest, responded softly when his name was called. Upon being asked for his final words, he said, "I am thankful for the kind treatment during my captivity, and I ask God to accept me with mercy." The sixth man to make his way to the gallows was Wilhelm Frick. Frick was the Minister of the Interior and the last governor of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. In his role as Minister of the Interior, Frick was instrumental in the implementation of the oppressive policies and laws that facilitated the establishment of the Nazi regime, which included the Enabling Act of 1933, a law that granted the German cabinet, most notably the Chancellor, the authority to create and implement laws without the participation of the Reichstag or the President, and the infamous Nuremberg laws that stripped Jewish citizens of their rights. After having stumbled up the stairs to the gallows, Frick's last words were, "Long live eternal Germany." Next in line was Julius Streicher. Streicher was the editor and publisher of the newspaper Der Stürmer. Der Stürmer became one of the most fanatic anti-Semitic publications of the era, spreading conspiracy theories, hate speech, and calls for the persecution of Jews. After the Nazis seized power, Streicher's influence and responsibility in the regime extended to his role as the Gauleiter of Franconia. In this capacity, he oversaw the implementation of anti-Semitic laws and policies. By 1940, Streicher was effectively removed from any significant position of power until the collapse of Nazi Germany. Streicher's defense during the trial was remorseless. He continued to advocate his anti-Semitic views and showed no remorse for his actions. The tribunal found him guilty of inciting murder and extermination through his propaganda, deeming his publications crucial in creating a climate of hatred that facilitated the Holocaust. Streicher's execution was filled with drama. As he stood at the base of the scaffold, he loudly proclaimed, "Heil Hitler!" And once on the platform, he referred to a Jewish holiday by shouting, "Purimfest!" His final words, before the hood was placed over his head, were, "The Bolsheviks will hang you one day." Joseph Kingsbury Smith, a journalist for the International News Service who reported on the executions that day, noted in his accounts that Streicher's final words under the hood were, "Adele, meine liebe Frau." Fritz Sauckel was the next who was taken to the gallows. Sauckel was notorious for his role in the forced labor program of the Third Reich. As general plenipotentiary for labor deployment, Sauckel was responsible for the brutal conscription of millions of foreign workers who were subjected to harsh conditions and inhumane treatment in Germany's wartime economy. His actions were instrumental in sustaining the Nazi war effort, but they came at a great human cost. During his trial, Sauckel protested his innocence and denied that it was slave labor or that it was common to deliberately work people to death or to mistreat them. Sauckel was found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. When asked if he had any last words, Sauckel said, "I am dying innocent. The sentence is wrong. God protect Germany and make Germany great again. Long live Germany. God protect my family." Alfred Jodl was the 9th person to be executed that day, at approximately 2:34 a.m. Alfred Jodl served as the chief of the operations staff of the German Armed Forces High Command. The charges against Jodl were related to his endorsement of the Commando Order and the Commissar Order. These orders mandated the immediate execution of specific groups of prisoners of war upon their capture. Additional charges at his trial included unlawful deportation and abetting execution. As evidence, his signature was presented on an order that transferred Danish citizens, including Jews, to Nazi concentration camps. With the collar of his Wehrmacht uniform slightly turned up at the back, like he had put it on quickly, Jodl walked into the building looking nervous. He kept licking his lips, and his face seemed tired and strained as he made his way inside. Before his execution, Jodl made a brief final statement on the scaffold. His last words were, "My greetings to you, my Germany." The last in line was Arthur Seyss-Inquart. Seyss-Inquart was the Austrian Chancellor and the Reichskommissar of the occupied Netherlands. His administration in the Netherlands was marked by brutality and oppression. Seyss-Inquart implemented policies that led to the severe persecution of Dutch Jews, the forced labor of Dutch citizens, and the suppression of any form of resistance. When put on trial, Seyss-Inquart's defense was largely centered on claims of following orders and ignorance regarding the full extent of the crimes committed. In his final statement, Seyss-Inquart denied knowledge of various war crimes, including the shooting of hostages. Moreover, he claimed his conscience was untroubled due to his efforts to improve the conditions of the Dutch people while serving as commissar. On receiving his death sentence, Seyss-Inquart responded fatalistically, "Death by hanging. Well, in view of the whole situation, I never expected anything different. It's all right." Seyss-Inquart was the last to mount the scaffold, and his final words were, "I hope that this execution is the last act of the tragedy of the Second World War, and that the lesson taken from this world war will be that peace and understanding should exist between peoples. I believe in Germany." Well, that was it. We hope you found this video informative. Please let us know what you think, and be sure to march on over to the subscribe button and join our History Battalion. Don't forget to like and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more World War II content. See you next time.